Morning, friends. It is Thursday, May 14th, chapter 11. And I'm also giving out free Corona haircuts. If anyone's interested, just email me or put a message up on Google Stream and I'll get back to that. Okay. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Violet was upstairs surveying her bedroom with a critical eye. She took a deep breath, then tied her hair in a ribbon to keep it out of her eyes. And as you and I and everyone who is familiar with Violet know, when she ties her hair back like that, it is because she needs to think up an invention. And right now, she needed to think of one quickly. Violet had realized when her brother had talked about Stefano ordering them to carry his suitcase into the house that the evidence that she had been looking for was undoubtedly in this very suitcase. And now, while her siblings were distracting the adults in the reptile room, would be her only opportunity to open the suitcase and retrieve proof of Stefano's evil plot. But her aching shoulder was a reminder that she couldn't simply open the suitcase. It was locked, with a lock as shiny as Stefano's scheming eyes. And I confess that if I were in Violet's place with only a few minutes to open a locked suitcase instead of on the deck of my friend Bella's yacht writing this down, I probably would have given up hope. I would have sunk to the floor of the bedroom and pounded my fists against the carpet, wondering why in the world life was so unfair and filled with inconveniences. Luckily for the Baudelaires, however, Violet was made of sterner stuff, and she took a good look around her bedroom for anything that might help her. There wasn't much in the way of inventing materials. Violet longed for a good room in which to invent things, filled with wires and gears and all of the necessary equipment to invent really top-notch devices. Uncle Monty was in fact of possession of many of these supplies, but, to Violet's frustration, as she thought of this, they were locked in the reptile room. She looked at the pieces of butcher paper tacked to the wall, where she had hoped to sketch out inventions as she lived in Uncle Monty's house. The only problem, or the trouble, had begun so quickly that Violet had only a few scribblings on the sheets, which she had written by the light of a floor lamp on her first night here. Violet's eyes traveled to the floor lamp as she remembered that evening, and when she reached the electrical socket, she had an idea. Now, we all know, of course, that we should never, ever, 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 ever. Ever, 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 ever fiddle around in any way with electrical devices. Never. There are two reasons for this. One is that you can get electrocuted, which is not only deadly but very unpleasant. And the other is that you are not Violet Baudelaire, one of the few people in the world who know how to handle such things. And even Violet was very careful and nervous as she unplugged the lamp and took a long look at the plug itself. It might work. Now, hoping that Klaus and Sonny were continuing to stall the adults successfully, Violet wiggled the two prongs of the plug this way and that until at last they came loose from their plastic casing. She now had two small metal strips. Violet then took one of the thumbtacks out of the butcher paper, letting the paper curl down the wall as if it were lazy. And with the sharp end of the tack, she poked and prodded the two pieces of metal until one was hooked around the other, and then forced the thumbtack between the two pieces so the sharp end stuck straight out. The result looked like a piece of metal you might not notice if it lay in the street, but in fact what Violet had made was a crude, the word crude here means roughly made at the last minute, rather than rude or ill-mannered, lockpick. Lockpicks, as you probably know, are devices that work as if they were proper keys, usually used by bad guys to rob houses or escape from jail. But this one was one of the rare times when a lockpick was being used by a good guy, Violet Baudelaire. Violet walked quietly back down the stairs, holding her lockpick in one hand and crossing her fingers with the other. She tiptoed past the enormous door of the reptile room and hoped that her absence would not be noticed as she slipped outside. And deliberately averting her eyes from Dr. Lucafont's car to avoid catching even a glimpse of Uncle Monty's body, the eldest Baudelaire walked towards the pile of suitcases. She looked first at the ones belonging to the Baudelaires. Those suitcases contained, she remembered, lots of ugly, itchy clothing that Mrs. Poe had bought them soon after their parents died. For a few seconds, Violet found herself staring at the suitcases, remembering how effortless her life had been before all this trouble had set upon them, and how surprising it was to find herself in such miserable circumstances now. This may not be surprising to us because, well, we know how disastrous the lives of the Baudelaire orphans are, but Violet's misfortune was constantly surprising to her, and it took her a minute to push thoughts of her situation out of her head and to concentrate on what she had to do. She knelt down to get closer to Stefano's suitcase, held the shiny silver padlock in one hand, took a deep breath, and stuck the lockpick into the keyhole. It went inside, but when she tried to turn it around, it scarcely budged, only scraped a little at the inside of the keyhole. It needed to move more smoothly, or it would never work. Violet took her lockpick out and wet it with her mouth, grimacing at the stale taste of the metal. Then she stuck the lockpick into the keyhole again and tried to move it. It wiggled slightly, and then lay still. Violet took the lockpick out and thought very, very, very hard, retying her hair in a ribbon. And as she cleared the hair from her eyes, though she felt a sudden prickle on her skin, it was unpleasant and familiar. It was the feeling of being watched. She looked quickly behind her, but she saw only the snake-shaped hedges on the lawn. She looked to the side and saw only the driveway leading down Lousy Lane. But then she looked straight ahead through the glass walls of the reptile room. And this is a picture of Violet picking the lock. Friends, let's stop there. Assignment today, just watch the assignment explanation. That'll help you. If you need help with your grades or need help with the assignment, make sure that you Zoom with me today, 2 o'clock to 2:45, or go on Google Stream and set up a Zoom time with me, or email me for a time that you would rather Google. Assignments. So I was just doing the math here. Today is the 14th. The last day of assignments is the week of the 29th, which means you have today's assignment, you have 2 assignments next week, and then 2 assignments the week after that. So that's going to be 5 assignments left, counting today's. And then that last week, the week of June 1st through the 5th, we're just going to be catching up any late assignments or grades that you want to turn in. So 5 assignments left. 1 this week, 2 the next week, 2 the week after that. Not COVID. All right. Have a good day and a good weekend. And let me know if you need help. Let me know how I may help you. And I miss you, and I will smell you later.